Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Christmas reads, and I thought what better to film a Christmas related video in front of our Christmas tree. So in October, I did a vlog where we were looking for a new Christmas tree, and we didn't find anything that we really wanted at that time or was the right height. Then, when we were looking a few weeks later, we found one that we'd gone to the store specifically to see, and we didn't like it once we saw it in person, but then they had this one, and they were 50% off. So, I couldn't pass up that. So then we had to set it up to make sure that it fit where we wanted it and that it worked and none of the pieces were broken. So that's why we have a set up tree. It is not decorated yet, so it's partially done because we have to add our decorations and stuff and personalize it for our tree. So until then, I thought, well, since it's up, let's use it. So the first book I'm going to talk about is a novella collection. It is called The Christmas Heirloom, and it is a collection of 4 novellas from 4 different authors. It begins in Regency England in the 1820s and continues to present-day Washington State and follows the legacy of a brooch passed from mother to daughter for almost 200 years. While each story was set in different time periods and unique to that author's writing style, they all flow together wonderfully. This book released in October of 2018, and I rated it 4 stars when I read it, which for me I feel is a high rating for a novella collection because I'm not a big fan of novellas and I tend to shy away from them. So the first story is Legacy of Love by Christie Ann Hunter. This story hooked me right from the beginning with the matchmaking grandmother. I had to laugh at her antics and the way that Randall and Sarah tried to avoid them. I quickly came to care for each character. Then story number 2 is Gift of the Heart by Karen Whitmire. This was a really sweet story. Ruth is determined to provide for her daughter and will give whatever is needed to do so. Bo agrees to the plan she has presented but wants to stay in the background. I absolutely loved the way that Ruth befriends Bo and helps him learn to become more comfortable around others. The interactions between Bo and Ruth's daughter Naomi were delightful. Story number 3 is A Shot at Love by Sarah Loudon Thomas. Fleda was a girl with a set plan in place, and that plan does not include allowing a guy into her life. However, when Hank and Fleda meet, there is an instant attraction. Neither can stop thinking about the other. Fleda fights the attraction and tries to move ahead with her plans. But when things take a turn for the worse, Hank comes to her rescue and her opinion of allowing him in her life changes. I loved how supportive Fleda's family was of her dreams. Then the 4th story is Because of You by Becky Wade. This was my favorite. I loved that this story tied in with Becky Wade's series, The Bradford Sisters. Maddie works with Britt and has feelings for Leo, but feels like she can't let them know. When the two are teamed together for a Christmas project, they end up spending quite a bit of time together, and Leo begins to see Maddie differently. Their story is a story of healing and moving forward and contained so much depth I was not expecting in a novella. I loved these two, and it was easy to root for them. So the second book I'm going to mention is Catching Christmas by Terri Blackstock. This book reminds me so much of a Hallmark Christmas movie. The main characters are a cab driver, a grandmother, and a granddaughter. The cab driver gets sent to pick up the grandmother for a doctor's appointment. He expects this to be a routine pick-up and drop-off call. However, when he meets the grandmother, nothing is what he expected. He ends up going above his normal duties, and because of his actions, it was easy to fall for him. Grandma is suffering from a memory loss and can fall asleep in an instant. But she remembers the kind cab driver and continues to request him. However, due to her health, she doesn't always remember to pay him. He is torn between compassion for the grandmother, frustration with her family, and the reminder of feeling like he failed his mom. When he eventually meets the granddaughter, he has already formed an opinion about her and isn't afraid to speak his mind. But then he learns why she hasn't been there, and the two end up bonding while caring for Grandma. I loved watching the relationship grow and both learning to put important matters front and center in their lives. This story will make you realize just how valuable time spent with people is. It is a true feel-good Christmas story. Then the next book is A Cross-Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. Lauren lives in LA and her family is in the Midwest. Her brother arranges for her to catch a ride home with his good friend Will. Lauren had a crush on Will while growing up and wants nothing to do with him now. But she's stuck in a car with him from California to Illinois. She likes to be organized and have a set plan. He's spontaneous. She is convinced he hasn't changed from his younger ways, and he is trying to prove to her and himself that he has. The two clash over everything during their road trip. This was a fun story in which not only are you following characters you want to cheer for, but characters that also grow and learn from one another. I personally love road trips, so following along on their journey from across the states was fun. I understood Lauren's unease because I am a planner and need to have the plans set before heading out. Winging it makes me very nervous and uncomfortable. This story was filled with lots of fun, maybe awkward moments for the characters, but it had me laughing a lot. Okay, then we come to The Christmas Bargain by Shanna Hatfield. Now, I know I've talked about this book a few times, and I'm going to be talking about it again. So this is book 1 of the Hardman Holidays series. I first read this book in 2015. I've read it 2 more times since, and it is on my November TBR to read this month. I'm reading it this month to fulfill the prompt on Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge for November is read a cozy or a nostalgic book. This is kind of both for me. This is a cozy book that I really enjoy, and it's kind of nostalgic because when I think of favorite books, this is a book that comes to mind. So Luke is the local banker. He arrives at Philly's father's house to collect a debt he is owed. And then when her father is unable to pay what is owed, he gives his daughter to Luke as payment. Luke agrees to this just to get Philly away from her father. He doesn't know Philly, but he knows that her dad is not a good man. Luke knows he can't just have a woman live in his house, so he marries her for propriety's sake. Philly will serve as cook and housekeeper, while Luke will protect her from her father. As they get to know one another, their relationship develops. I love watching their relationship bloom, and the setting is so well written that I easily picture myself experiencing day-to-day life with them in this western town. This has become a comfort read for me. Now, the last 4 books I'm going to mention are all from Shanna Hatfield's Rodeo Romance series. There are currently 9 books in this series, and each book has Christmas in the title and features a character with a rodeo connection. The whole story may not take place at Christmas, but each one does have time spent at the National Rodeo Convention in Las Vegas each December and have a Christmas scene. Characters are repeated and intertwined throughout each book. They're either good friends to one another or acquaintances through rodeo interactions. Each story is filled with cowboys, faith, family, humor, and love. For the last 9 years, a new book has been released each year just in time for Christmas. Book number 10, Savoring Christmas, was just released on the 10th, and I hope to read it soon. So book number 1 I'm only going to talk about the ones that I've given 5 stars to. So book number 1 is The Christmas Cowboy. Tate and Kenzie initially meet at the airport waiting for their flights. Kenzie is a trainer for a successful company and flies regularly. Tate is a saddle bronc rider who also flies regularly to avoid various rodeos. After their initial meeting, they part ways thinking they won't see each other again, but then they continue to run into one another at the airport. Tate is taken by Kenzie, but she wants to avoid him due to previous experiences with cowboys. Eventually, the two start dating, but when Kenzie jumps to conclusions about something she saw, everything goes from going well to being miserable. Tate is the kind of gentleman that every girl deserves. I loved the way he treated Kenzie, his father, and his friends. Kenzie lets her trust issues rule her choices and ends up making herself miserable. I was cheering for the two to be able to overcome the challenges in their relationship, and the way the story wraps will definitely put the reader in the Christmas spirit. So then, book 2 is Wrestling Christmas. It features Court, a steer wrestler, and Kaylee, a widowed single mother. Court has experienced a major injury and feels like his career is over. He is in a bad place when his best friend Tate lines him up at a job at a neighbor's ranch. This is where he meets Kaylee. He is not in a good place when he first arrives, and as he gets to know Kaylee and her son, he begins to see life differently. I loved seeing Court interact with little Jacob. I loved that Court was able to get a new perspective and turn his life around. This one took me on an emotional ride. I also love that Tate and Kenzie from book 1 were a big part of this story. Then the next book I'm going to mention is book number 4, which is called Barreling Through Christmas. So this one features Cooper, a rodeo clown and barrel man, and Paige, an ad exec. Paige has arrived in Las Vegas for the rodeo finals with one goal in mind: find a cowboy with the right assets for her client's new clothing line. Paige spots one, but is only able to get a picture of his backside before he disappears into the crowd. So the hunt begins, figuring out who this mysterious cowboy is. Meanwhile, Paige has captured the attention of Cooper, and he finds joy in trying to get her to loosen up. He knows who Paige is looking for, but he doesn't tell her because he's having fun getting to know her and doesn't want to ruin that. However, I'm glad I wasn't Paige. With the embarrassment that Cooper puts her through, I could understand her anger. The chemistry between these two was strong, and no matter how much Paige tried to deny it, her sister and Cooper's grandfather are determined to meddle until they realize how perfect they are together. I laughed so much through this story. You'll end this one with a smile on your face. So then the last book I'm going to mention is Chasing Christmas, which is book number 5. It features bull rider Chase agrees to let his cousin act as his publicity manager. She hatches a scheme to skyrocket his popularity. All he has to do is show up for a fake wedding. But it doesn't go as planned, and the wedding turns out to be real. Jessie didn't know what was happening when she ends up in Vegas with her best friend pretending to marry a famous bull rider. When she discovers the wedding was real, she is freaked out. She is an introvert who wants to stay behind the scenes and not be in the public eye, married to a famous cowboy. The cousin and best friend can see that these two are perfect for one another, and they do everything they can to force them to spend time together, getting to know one another. Feelings begin to form, but both refuse to admit it as they are worried that their feelings are one-sided. This isn't a typical marriage of convenience story, as they didn't choose this situation, but rather find themselves married to a stranger. However, feelings do develop, and they each need to decide how to deal with those feelings. I loved following along while these two got to know one another and learn to be honest about their feelings. So those are 8 of kind of my favorite Christmas reads, ones that I will reread. Again, some of them I have reread. I have reread 3 of the Rodeo Romance books 3 times. And I've read The Christmas Bargain 3 times, and it's on my list to read for a 4th time this November. And I also plan on reading book number 10, the new release from Shanna Hatfield, in either November or December. And I do have a couple other Christmas books that I plan to reread, or not reread, to read this Christmas season, but I didn't want to mention them in this video because I haven't read them yet. I don't know if they're any good, so I don't want to recommend them yet. So those are kind of Christmas reads that I say, give a shot, try them. Kind of Shanna Hatfield is kind of my go-to to get a feel-good Christmas story. Do you have any authors or any Christmas stories that you really enjoy that I have not mentioned? I'd love to chat in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy this type of video, I would love if you would subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Bye.